Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Carolyn, and in this video I'm going to be ranking all of the eyeshadow palettes that I tried for the first time in 2022. So if that sounds interesting to you, then just keep on watching. Okay, so these are all of the eyeshadow palettes that I tried in 2022, and most of them weren't released in 2022, but this was the year, last year was the first time I tried these palettes. So anyway, I have 26 eyeshadow palettes to talk about here. So I'm going to be ranking them from least favorite to most favorite. So let's just get started. So number 26 is the Chic Glam Virtuous Virgo palette. I took out the pressed glitter, but if you saw my eyeshadow palette declutter, you know that I'm actually decluttered this. It's color story is somewhat limited, and I just don't feel like the quality is very good. I got it for the packaging, but it's a regret. So yeah, so that's number 26. Okay, next is the Makeup Revolution Chilled palette. I just didn't like the formula on this palette. I love the color story. I didn't try the pressed glitters. I heard that they weren't very good, and I just didn't have a desire to try the pressed glitters. But I just didn't find the mattes worked particularly well. They took a lot of building up, and they still didn't show up that great. They didn't blend all that well. And then the shimmers were okay, but they were just okay. So I'm actually going to be decluttering this one, and you would have seen that if you watched my declutter video. But someone mentioned in the comments that this is one of their Forever Flawless, this is part of their Forever Flawless line, and that most of the palettes in this line are pretty good. This is just like not a good one. She apparently had this one too and said that this is just not their best one, so something to keep in mind. But yeah, I'm not a fan of this palette, so I'm going to be passing that along. And number 24 is the ABH Riviera palette. This is another one I'm passing along. This one is just the color story. I just find it kind of like difficult to work with the color story, but the formula is good. There's nothing really wrong with it. I have a hard time coming up with looks for this palette, so that's why it's ranked somewhat low. Number 23 is the Colourpop Darth Vader palette. I got it for the packaging. This one, I feel like the formula is fine. It's just the color story. I'm just not a fan of like gray eyeshadows. I've used all the shades in this palette, but it's just not one I feel like using very much because I just don't really, I'm not drawn to the color story, but it's just a personal preference thing. But I'm happy to have it. I got it for the packaging, so yeah, but it's just ranked a little bit low because of the color story. Next is the Colourpop Mandalorian palette, and the same thing. It's just I do really enjoy I like the shades better in this palette than in the Vader palette, but it's still got those like gray tones. But it's just a color story thing, and from here on out, actually since the bottom two palettes, there's not really any, like all of the palettes I have enjoyed somewhat, so they just have to rank somewhere. But it's still a good palette. I still like this palette. It's just I like the other ones that I'm going to be mentioning more, so yeah. But the quality's good, and the shimmer shades are really pretty, and this yellow is good too. I don't really like these two shades all that much, but that's just my personal preference. Next, number 21 is the Colourpop Harry Potter palette. This is another one where it's just the color story. The quality, I used the majority of these shades, but the quality is fine. It's just a color story I don't really find particularly inspiring. I'm just not really drawn to use it. It's just kind of like a meh color story, so that's why it's ranked somewhat low. This is one I actually kind of retired, as in I'm gonna keep it because I got it for collector's reasons for the packaging, but it's just not one I want to keep with the rest of my palettes because I just don't feel like using it. I'm just not really drawn to the color story. So it's ranked at number 21. Okay, number 20. This is one that it pains me to rank so low because I do really like it. But this one, it's because more of the quality issues. I personally really enjoy this palette, but I do have to say that this yellows here and this yellow are a little bit chalky. Or I guess this one's like, they're almost like chartreuse. There's like a little bit of green in there, like a little bit of lime green, chartreuse color. I'm not really great at describing colors, but I feel like these three shades are kind of hard to formulate because they're almost like neon. And so they do take a little bit of finessing. They do show up, but they take a little bit of building up. I love this color story. But just because of these shades, the quality, I had to rank it a little bit lower, but it is still like one of my favorite palettes. But I hope this ranking makes sense because I'm trying to rank it for like objectively, like quality and color story and like what I would recommend. So this isn't a palette that I would just like go around recommending to people, to everyone. But I still really enjoy it, so it's ranked at number 20. I hope that makes sense, but it makes sense in my brain. Okay, coming in at number 19 is the Glamlight Chocolate Martini palette. This is the only Glamlight palette I've tried, and I got it during their Black Friday sale this last year. And the color story is what drew me in, and the color story is like 10 out of 10 in my opinion. I love this color story. The issue I have with this palette is the mattes. Like the shimmers are really good. They're kind of remind me a lot of Colourpop Super Shock shadows, but just the mattes are, in my opinion, really difficult to work with. Like they're pretty thin and hard to build up and just like not opaque enough for me. But that's just kind of my personal preference. I don't know. A lot of people seem to love this formula. So, I mean, everybody has their own preferences when it comes to makeup. So, just my preference is I'm not a huge fan of these mattes. And I have tried them different ways where you do like darkest to lightest. And because normally I do lightest to darkest. But I've tried darkest to lightest. I've tried stamping them on and then blending them instead of blending in them as I go. But I kind of get the same result regardless of which way I do it. But anyway, number 19. Coming in at number 18 is the Odin's Eye Alba palette. This one is, I really do enjoy this palette. I think the shimmers are good. They pick up nicely with a brush, like you don't have to use your fingers, which I kind of I appreciate that about it. And except this one is kind of, again, like kind of like that's almost putty-like Super Shock formula. The shimmers are a bit kind of redundant. Like I feel like these two are really similar. And I just feel like the shimmer shades are pretty similar in this palette. And then the matte formula is just okay. And this yellow matte, I don't feel like is good at all. So yeah, that's why it's ranked at number 18, a little bit lower, but it's still a good palette. So anyway. Okay, next I have the Bailey Sarian and Estate Cosmetics Venice Fling palette. This was sent to me by my friend on Instagram, Jamie from Silver Lining Makeup. I had commented on one of my friend's posts that I was bummed I missed out on this because I love Bailey Sarian, and Jamie offered to send this to me, so that was super sweet. I really enjoy the formula of this palette. I think the mattes work well. I like how versatile this palette is because you can use this shade as a bronzer, you can use these two shades as blushes, and this shade in the crease, this in the outer corner, and this on the lid makes a really pretty like everyday neutral look. So I love the versatility of this palette. I think it's a great little palette. I don't really have anything negative to say about it. I just like the other ones that I'm going to mention a little bit more. Okay, coming in at number 16 is the Tati Beauty palette, and I don't have it anymore because I sent it to someone else, but I'll put up a picture. So I think most of us know what this looks like, but In case you don't, I have a picture up there. This one was sent to me by my friend Misty on YouTube. She was doing a declutter, and she sent me this one and then a few other palettes, but I wanted it because there was a lot of hype around it and I never got it, and I wanted to try the pressed glitters because I've heard that those were really good pressed glitters. And I tried it, and I realized I still don't like pressed glitters because it was getting kind of like in my lashes, and I've been just very wary about pressed glitters because I don't want them to get in my eye and cause issues. So I just found the color story was like a bit boring, but the formula was good. I still don't like the pressed glitters. I don't know if those are like the best pressed glitters out there, but they were fine. There was still a lot of fallout. So I passed it on to someone who mentioned that they had a lot of FOMO about it. So I figured they would like it more than me. So yeah, so that's but the formula was good. It was just like a kind of a boring palette in my opinion. But yeah, so anyway. Okay, coming in at number 15 is my Melt Mary Jane palette. This was sent to me by my friend Dub's Beauty Diary on YouTube, and this is what made me turn into a melt stan. Now I feel like I have to have all the melt palettes, but this was the first one I tried, and the reason it's not ranked higher is because this shimmer and this shimmer, the two end shimmers, are really crumbly and like difficult to use, and you have to take your time putting a look together with this palette, but I still love it. I love the color story. Yeah, so that's why this is ranked number 15, but I really love this palette. Number 14 is the Odin's Eye Verdandi palette. This was sent to me from Misty, and I didn't mention, but she also sent me the ABH Riviera palette, the Revolution Chilled palette, and the Alva palette. She had sent me quite a few palettes from her declutter, but this is one of them that she sent me, and I really enjoyed this palette. Like, the color story is somewhat limited, that's why it's not ranked higher, but the formula is really good, and I really like this shade. This one that I busted when I dropped this palette, but it could have been worse. So anyway, yeah, I don't really, it's just kind of a limited color story, so that's why it's ranked where it is, but it's a pretty good palette otherwise. Number 13 is the Nomad Cosmetics Berlin Underground palette. This was sent to me by a friend also. Liz from She Loves to Sparkle sent this to me from her declutter. This one, it would be higher, except for there's just one matte, and then there's just a few satins and then shimmers, but because there's just one matte, I feel like I have to combine this with other palettes. But it is a really pretty palette. Like, I love the color story. I really love the formula on this. It's not like a super impactful shimmer. It's not super metallic, but it's kind of a soft shimmer, but I still really like the formula. I know it's not for everyone, like it's not super sparkly or anything, but I don't know, there's just something I really like about it. Anyway, yeah, so this is number 13. I'm really happy to have it. Coming in at number 12 is the ABH Norvina palette. This is another one that Misty sent me from her declutter. This I think she got this on Poshmark or Mercari, but and I think it is expired just because of the formula on some of these mattes, and then the shimmers are really crumbly and they don't last long and they're not super impactful. But I ranked it based off of the formula, that because I've had other ABH palettes and I know that I enjoy her formula, and a lot of people do, and I know that this palette wasn't known for having like a bad formula, and a lot of people love this palette, so I based it off of that and the color story. But yeah, I think this is a really pretty palette. I think it gives you a lot of like pretty romantic feminine looks. But yeah, anyway, that is number 12. Number 11 is the BH Passion in Paris. This year, 2022, was the year that I tried BH for the first time, and I got quite a few BH palettes because I heard that because Makeup Revolution bought them out. So I hadn't tried BH and I heard a lot of good things, so I went ahead and bought several palettes from them. But This is one where the color story, I just have like a little bit of a hard time putting looks together, but the formula is really good. I'm actually wearing this shade in my crease, and then on my lid I'm wearing, this isn't part of the ranking, but I tried it out for the first time today, and this was one that my friend, Miss Moxie May, sent me, my friend from Instagram, so she sent this to me, and because she was decluttering a couple palettes, and I have this shade which is kind of looking more blue on camera than in person. It's more of a lavender color, I feel like, more of a purple color, but this is what I'm wearing on my eyelid today. So anyway, that was like a side tangent, but this is a great palette still, and I think that this makes a really good companion palette. It pairs well with a lot of other palettes, and the quality is fantastic. So yeah, that's number 11. Number 10 is the BH Lost in Los Angeles palette. I got a lot of use out of this palette in the spring and summer of last year, and I just really enjoyed this palette, and I think it makes a lot of pretty looks. I do feel like it's kind of a better companion palette because you don't get a lot of depth in this palette, but it's a really good formula. So yeah, that's number 11. Sorry, that was number 10. Number 9 is the Colourpop C-3PO palette. This one I got for the packaging, and I feel like the formula is really good. The color story is really easy. It's just kind of monochromatic, but I do really love the tones of these colors, and I love I think the formula is really good, and I don't really have anything negative to say about it. So yeah, that is number 9. And then number 8 is the Urban Decay Naked Honey palette, which I've already decluttered, and it's because it looks really similar to this. The looks that I got with the Naked Honey were really similar to the looks that I got with this one, and I wanted this one for the packaging, so I passed the Urban Decay Naked Honey on to someone else, and so I'll put up a picture of that. But yeah, it's just really similar to this one, but with that one you get more variety. This one has like a slightly better formula. I did a video comparing the two, and I did one eye with Colourpop and one eye with the Urban Decay Naked palette, or Naked Honey palette. And I felt like this eye, the one I did with this palette, was slightly better. It's just like the shimmer shades are a little bit more punchy and sparklier. But sparklier. Anyway, slightly better formula, negligible but slightly better. But the Naked Honey has a little bit more variety. So anyway, this was number 9, and the Urban Decay was number 8. Number 7 is the Colourpop Star Wars palette. This one, again, I got for the packaging. I love the inward packaging, but I really love the colors in this palette. I feel like, so this shade gave me a little bit of difficulty. The blue gave me a little bit of difficulty, but not too much, but just a little bit. So it's not like the perfect formula, but it's still a pretty good formula. This one is a really pretty kind of like topper duochrome shade, and this one and this one are super soft formula. So I just love like all the textures in this palette, and the color story is pretty cool. So yeah, so this is number 8. No, 7. It's number 7. Number 6 is the Colourpop Hocus Pocus 2 palette, the All Hallows Eve palette that they came out with this last year. And I love this palette. I was watching Chic Geek, and she was saying that this shade and this shade are like a new formula from Colourpop, that they aren't pressed glitters, but they're kind of like pressed glitters, and they give you the effect of the pressed glitter with still being like eye safe. So I really enjoyed that about this palette, Stella. And I find the color story to be like very inspiring. I just see a lot of looks when I look at this palette, And I also like the rose, where it's really easy to put together a look. You know, you could do a green look, a purple look, an orange look. So yeah, so this was ranked pretty high. I really did enjoy this palette. Number 5 is the BH Blueberry Muffin palette. This is a great formula. Again, BH. All the palettes that I've tried from BH were fantastic formulas. I don't really have anything negative to say about it. I don't really wear blues too much, but whenever I feel like wearing blue, this would be the palette I go to. And I do like that you don't have to just do a blue look when you use this palette, because there are the browns, and I actually did use this palette and I got kind of a purpley look. So yeah, it's number 5. Next is the BH Mimosa palette. I really enjoyed this one. I know there's not a lot of depth, it's mostly like mid-tones, but I love the shimmer shades in this palette, and I had a lot of fun using this in the spring and summer, and I didn't want to stop using it, so I used it a lot, and I really love this palette. So it's number 4. Number 3 is the BH Avocado Toast palette. This one, I know when I did my previous ranking during the middle of the year, where I ranked all of my eyeshadow palettes, I ranked this one below the Mimosa palette because I love the Mimosa palette so much. But I felt like this one just gives a little bit more versatility and a little bit more depth, and the formula is just as good, and there's really pretty shimmers in this one as well. So it's ranked a little bit higher, but yeah, I love this palette. Okay, number 2. I can't believe we're already in the top 2 palettes, but number 2 is my Melt Rust palette. This one is a pretty like neutral palette, but I love a good neutral palette, and I think this is a really good everyday like neutral palette for me, because I just really, these tones are very flattering on me, and I just love the looks that I get with this palette. They're very like sultry. I don't really have anything negative to say about it. I really enjoy this palette. I know the shimmers, there's only 3 shimmer shades, but I really enjoy Melt for their matte formula, so I'm okay with like the limited number of shimmers, and I have a lot of shimmer shades in my other palettes, and I don't mind reaching into other palettes for shimmer shades. So yeah, anyway, this is number 2. I really like this palette. I'm really glad I got it. And my number 1 palette should come as no surprise for the majority of you if you've been following me for any length of time. This is my number 1 palette in my whole collection. It's my favorite palette, and it is the Onizai and Angelica Nyquist Hella palette. This one is no longer available. It did come out in 2022, but it's no longer available, but it was out for a while, so I feel like if you really wanted it, you probably have it. This was the first Onizai palette I tried, and the first time I tried a multi-chrome. The shade Double Sided is multi-chrome, and I'm pretty sure my favorite eyeshadow in my whole collection, because it's the only one I have like it. I use this a lot with other palettes, and the shade River is super pretty. The formula on this, I can't fault the formula at all. Every shade in this palette works beautifully for me. I love the color story. I like how you could do kind of like a spring summer look here, and then you've got kind of more grungy fall tones up there. Yeah, I feel like Angelica Nyquist did such a good job with the color story on this, and the packaging, the design of the packaging. I really can't say anything negative about this palette, so it's my number 1 palette for 2022. So yeah, those were all of the eyeshadow palettes I tried in 2022. I normally do a ranking at the end of at the beginning of every month for my previous month's palettes. The palettes that I pulled in for my Shop My Stash, but I didn't do that for December. I was pretty sick during a lot of December, so that's why I don't have the ranking of the palettes I used in December. So I figured this would make up for that, and I'm not going to do a Shop My Stash for January. I don't know if I'm going to do one for February. I don't know if I'm going to continue with the Shop My Stashes for a little bit. I might take a break because I'm probably going to have surgery for my, I have a ganglion cyst, and you can see it right there. It's a little bump. It was causing me issues last year. I had it injected with steroids, and it went away temporarily, but it was gonna come back because they didn't get rid of like the actual sac. So I kind of knew it was gonna come back, but we wanted to try injecting it first. Anyway, I may need to take some time off from makeup and YouTube during that time because it's gonna be about 6 weeks of wearing a brace and not really being able to use my wrist. So yeah, I just kind of want to take a break from doing the Shop My Stashes. But I'm planning on doing another ranking my whole eyeshadow palette collection sometime during 2023, where I rank every single palette in my collection. So definitely subscribe if you are interested in seeing that. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and I will see you in the next video.